Hey, welcome back. So we are now in episode 3 of a 4-part series with Bronson and I. And today we're going to talk about how do you build a legacy that lasts way beyond you and generations after you die. The statistic is that 2.3 generations a legacy's blown because your grandkids are going to be the ones that blow it or break it up. There's ways to prevent that by putting better trust together. Today, Bronson and I are going to talk about what the structure of your corporate life and your legacy life looks like, from the corporate structure to the trusts and how they're held. The next thing we're going to talk about is how do you have the kids remember you? Like really remember you, the parent, the grandparent. I know I want to be known as the grandma, right? Where they've already got a funny name for me. They're going to call me Glam Glam because I like to wear a lot of bling and things like that. But I have dozens of books put away for my kids that they must read and instill, as well as games, to put our legacy at the table for the rest of their lives. And the last thing we're going to talk about is how do you get your goal while you're spending money to have the life you want while you're alive, doing business trips, and set up almost a banking level trust for generations to come. Listen into Bronson and I.
But I was actually going to ask you, Loral, from a, trust and LLC perspective, what are some of the basics for our listeners? What are some of the basics that you recommend across the board for people that are trying to have that Rockefeller legacy?
Well, start with irrevocable for sure. You got to stay out of probate. And we should all do a book swap because I'm seeing your book, Bronson. I'm seeing your book. We should all swap books and send them around. And I'm a book reader, so I want the physical copy, not the audio.
Yeah. Let's do it.
We should do that. It'd be fun. So what I see is there's so many estate lawyers. It's shocking that my client will come through my Ask Loral, because I have a AskLoral.com portal where they just ask questions. And they say, well, my estate lawyer said we are not a probate state. Or I was married to a Canadian, I live in province, blah, 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 and we don't have probate. It's like everywhere in the world has probate. I don't care if you're in Kenya. I don't care if you're in Dubai. You will go to probate because the government wants a piece of you when you die. And you will be evaluated as such and how you set it up. In fact, my son just got married. And for their birthdays this fall, I'm going to get them their first trust because if anything happens to either one of them, they both got pretty well established estates behind them. So they're going to go into it differently. And then as you grow in your wealth, you set up irrevocables trusts. So I'm in Northern Nevada, and Nevada has a very unique spendthrift trust is what it's called, but it's essentially an asset protection trust that if assets are held inside that trust for 2 years or more, that's what the bulletproof, structure is in Nevada. It's a very interesting, you have corporations that are held and then you straddle them. We do a lot of 98 and 2 or 90 and 10. Yeah. So we straddle. Ownership is always held by 2 very different kinds of trusts, and it just wraps the estate. They become higher net worth. So everybody's got their definition of what higher net worth. It used to be 5 in the day, and it's 10. I would say a mistake I see a lot is people own straight to the trust and they avoid the corporation being held in trust or the company. Mm-hmm. Tax advantages because the trusts don't have the tax advantages, the companies. So everything's held in companies. I call it living corporate life. So your life's wrapped up in companies that are held in trust, very strategically wrapped. And then there's a whole nother layer of privacy for those who want that. So it's a interesting model.
I think it's really interesting with, obviously, I think that's the issue with some of these asset protection trusts that you could be in the court of law and somebody says, do you own all these assets? And you can say no, because the trust owns it, right? But you control the trust, but you don't own it. And so when I learned about that, it was really interesting. It's interesting too, a lot of people like myself that are more active in real estate or active in business, you need to have access to the liquidity. You need to have access to so sometimes you do need to show that you do own things and you have certain things, but there's kind of when you're doing all that, we raised $50 million from retail investors, you're taking on liability, right? If a deal doesn't go well, something happens, you're taking on that risk. And so at what point is it 10 million, 100? What makes sense when it starts to actually start setting up not just a living trust, but also more of these asset protection trust type of vehicles? There's cost, there's carrying cost, all this, and there's kind of when does it make sense for a lot of people?
To a lot of people, a lot of our trust team would say at least 2.5 million, you should be looking at the doubles trust structure and then keep adding from there, depending on your net worth. And you also have to blend, the liability to your point. Your $50 million asset, you want that held way away from the rest of the house. That needs to be really isolated that it can't come into your world or give you the least amount of problems if and when it does.
Well, that's $50 million raised to go buy of investor funds raised for assets. Yeah. So that's
held in its own structure.
Those are all separate structures. Yeah. But yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep. So I think it depends on what people want.
Oh yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it depends on what they want, what their longer term goal is. I mean, I have a few people who have come in their 70s and 80s, very, very wealthy, no children, and they say, help me spend it all my lifetime. I'm like, that's actually kind of difficult to do.
Yeah.
Especially
Yeah.
if they're not very charitable. I mean, if they're super charitable, it's easy to
Yeah.
do, right? That's
Yeah.
easy to put some foundations and go. But it's interesting when people just want to spend it and then use deductions. To your point on lending, though, again, if you have your bookkeeping done well and your tax strategy done well, I only make $36,000 in my employment from one of my companies as a single mom. And I rent. I don't own a car. I don't own a house. I don't own a vehicle. Like I live it completely. And my kids have worked for my company since they were 1 day old. They've had Roth since they were 1 day old. They were employed their whole life until they get to college. And then I have to fire them because now they have to look really, they need to be broke. They don't have any income. So then they stay away for a while. So that's part of what this book described. There's 87 steps on how I did. People say, why'd you wait 20 years between the books? It's like, well, I had to raise my kids. I had to make this.
Yeah, you had to get the content for the book, right?
I had to get the content and see if it really worked.
I know. That's good.
Okay, we're going to go this way.
I want to ask Nate. I know Nate has some questions too, but I want to talk a bit about alternatives. And obviously, we're recording this mid-May. Lots going on in the world right now. Tariffs. There's a lot of uncertainty. A lot of people holding on. Lending is ridiculous. Well, I guess from a general perspective, or maybe just a personal level, what are things that you find interesting in the alternative space right now? What sort of assets are you finding that, hey, this is something I think is interesting?
Well, I'm still kind of in the same, ones I became a millionaire in. I love real estate and gas and oil. They'll always be my two stock and block.
Love
And
it.
the reason gas and oil, and so many people don't realize, and it's not investing, like when I had the contract with Chevron, I ended up being employed because I couldn't afford the helicopter insurance when I was super young. So I worked for a couple of years as a contractor and then I had to flip. My point in sharing that is like, yeah, I have some Chevron stock because it kind of came with my whole vested plan, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about buying the working capital interest of a well. And you actually own like a percent of a $10-20 million well. That cash flows, your depreciation schedule, it can be as much as 85 to 100% of your top line ordinary incomes. So doctors, for example, that are my clients that are making $500,000. I have a surgeon that just came in. The only reason he came in is he paid over $1 million in taxes, and he makes over $1 million because he's a very specialized surgeon. So to get his taxes down, it's a lot of corporate structure, trust structure. It's a lot of tax, planning, but it's how you pay yourself and how you take that down. As far as the alternatives is how you invest. And I teach a lot of folks, including how I activate, is invest in the things that give you depreciation schedule. So gas and oil is the king of the kingdom, I call it.
Yeah, it's huge.
Aviation's right next to it. I've owned aircraft for almost my entire career. And I'm King Airs. My kids are becoming pilots. My daughter will be a pilot, I hope, in like 6 weeks.
Are you a pilot also?
No, I like to buy the plane, take the depreciation, and sit in the back and drink some wine. That's
Are these jets? Are these prop planes, or what are these?
no, they're King Airs. They're like
They're usually dual props.
Dual props.
Yeah,
Okay.
I know a lot about aviation. Surprisingly, I know quite a bit, but yeah, keep going.
Yeah, and that's also because of key man and just speed. And like in the day when I was really like that 3 days to cash, I mean, I was probably doing 3-5 shows a week. I would just take my kids with me and we would just go. I mean, we had quite the interesting life growing up. And my kids say that, during their high school, they didn't like it. And now that they're like older, they're like, you taught us so much traveling because they just know how to get around. They have know how to navigate. They can make a decision. They know about safety. They know about security. There's just so much of that just comes with that life that it doesn't feel good as a kid getting drug around when your kids, their friends are normal, whatever normal is. I don't think there's such a thing. So I hope you enjoyed that. While you're here, I want you to subscribe to the channel. If you've not been here, click that subscription, click the notification link. I want you every day, 5 days a week to get a notification that I'm live. I'm come out every morning with a new video, new content. Make sure you participate, share with 10 or 15 people, and be here, be present every day. If you have questions during any of our journey, go to askloral.com, ask a question, make a request. We'll be back tomorrow with the next episode.